For decades, Tom Silva appeared on your TV screen as the humble carpenter from Massachusetts. But behind the cameras, he was living a completely different life. And since 1999, he had been secretly funding something that would surprise even his closest fans. 3 families knew the truth, but they were sworn to silence. And the secret involved California wildfires, Massachusetts disasters, and a foundation nobody knew existed. When the story finally leaked in 2025, it revealed Tom's biggest secret. And what he had been doing with his fortune shocked everyone, because this was not the Tom Silva most people thought they knew. Tom Silva came into the world on January 17, 1947, in Lexington, Massachusetts, in a home where work never stopped and every pair of hands mattered. His father shaped stone for a living. His older brother Dick was already learning the trade. And Tom grew up as the youngest in a family that believed skill was earned day by day. As a small kid, he watched his father repair stone walls around old New England homes. And by the time he turned 8, he already knew how to mix mortar with his own hands. Their house was partly built by relatives and felt more like a workshop than a home. Tom stained furniture with his dad, handled old tools that left splinters, learned careful woodworking by making small mistakes. At 10, he picked up a hammer on his own and started framing little sheds with his uncles. Picking up a scar on his left hand when a chisel slipped, a mark he carried for life. Those years between 10 and 16 shaped him, and one project stood out: building a fallout shelter under their 1787 colonial home during the Cold War. He helped dig a 20 by 40 by 12-foot pit with shovels, pulled out boulders, framed the structure, and finished everything by hand over 2 years. That project settled something in him. He knew this work was his future. After graduating from Lexington High School in 1965, Tom skipped college despite having a scholarship, believing school could not teach what real work could. In 1966, at just 19, he and Dick launched Silva Brothers Construction in Arlington with 1 pickup truck and $500 in tools. Many borrowed. They took whatever jobs they could get: small attic remodels, simple upgrades, and completed 10 jobs that first year through word of mouth. Tom's first solo kitchen expansion in Belmont came 2 years later, where he milled custom oak cabinets with hand tools through a blizzard and finished in 12 days, earning $2,000. By 1970, they began roofing work, and Tom's technique, using old barnwood, saved clients money, helping the business grow until a storm caused a roof collapse that nearly injured him. That moment forced them to improve safety and change their entire approach. In 1972, he married Susan, who became the backbone of the business, managing books from their garage and allowing Tom to take bigger projects like a 1974 barn conversion using 200-year-old beams. Trouble hit in 1975 when a client blamed them for foundation issues and sued, forcing the Silvas to mortgage their home. Instead of fighting, Tom rebuilt the entire structure over 3 months, and the stunned client dropped the lawsuit and even recommended them to others, strengthening Tom's reputation. Everything shifted again in 1986 when producer Russell Moresh from This Old House saw Tom at a trade show and tested him unexpectedly on a job site. Tom passed effortlessly, was hired as the show's general contractor, and debuted in season 6 repairing a Victorian staircase. His honesty, skills, and simple explanations made him a viewer favorite. In 1987, he insisted on hand-nailing 500 shiplap boards on Nantucket despite delays, showing his commitment to tradition. In 1988, his habit of whistling Portuguese folk tunes during fine detail work charmed audiences. In 1989, he saved a cameraman from a collapsing scaffold, fracturing his wrist but refusing to stop working. His skills gained national attention in 1990 when he restored a 1790 colonial home using 18th-century methods, earning praise from the New York Times and inspiring preservationists. In 1992, he created the Silva shim method to fix uneven floors, a technique now used across New England. A snapped handsaw blade injured him in 1994, but his calm response aired repeatedly and sparked tool safety discussions. In 1995, he clashed with his nephew Charlie over hand-carved corbels, but stood firm, reinforcing tradition over shortcuts. In 1996, he expanded the company with a mill shop and restored a 1920s planer used in a Boston Museum craft exhibit. His first Ask This Old House segment aired in 2002, where he repaired a slate roof with handmade replicas, teaching viewers the value of old materials. In 2005, he fixed warped floors using a hidden dehumidification system, inspired by 18th century storage methods. Years of strain led to 2 major back surgeries in 2007, but he returned to filming weeks later with braces and adjusted schedules. In 2010, he replaced vinyl windows with custom mahogany sashes that cut heating bills by 30%. A stormy shoot in 2012 led him to build a fast gutter system from recycled copper, a clip that went viral. In 2015, Tom handed company operations to Charlie as Silva brothers reached $5 million a year. His eagle eye prevented a costly structural error in 2016. In 2018, he led a solar-integrated garage build with bamboo trusses that survived a Category 2 hurricane. A lumber scam in 2019 cost $50,000.
Ow.
But Tom recovered most funds and tightened supplier rules. By 2020, he was focused on legacy, teaching his grandson dovetails with modern safety gear. In 2022, he oversaw seismic reinforcement of a 300-year-old Lexington and using hidden steel brackets. In 2023, he inspected 3D printed walls himself during a special episode, arguing that the future lay in blending machines with tradition, sparking industry debate. In 2024, more than 5,000 people watched him hand-plane a cherry board for 2 days at a trade expo. It's causing an 80% surge in traditional tool interest and a 35% spike in sales. In early 2025, he fractured his hip falling from a ladder but returned in 6 weeks. The new safety routine called ladder checkpoints that inspired older DI years. He and Charlie built a zero-waste tiny home series using reclaimed barnwood that reached thousands. By late 2025, at 78, he was still doing quality checks, writing a memoir, and describing moments that shaped him like a single bad nail that changed how he worked forever. Outside the spotlight, he attended Portuguese festivals with his wife Susan, carving wooden rosaries and demonstrating techniques. At home, he restored antique tools, some worth thousands, and donated profits to trade scholarships. And then came the secret that surprised even his closest fans. For more than 2 decades, Tom had been quietly channeling most of his earnings into a hidden foundation he created in 1999. He never attached his name to it, never told producers, and never mentioned it in interviews. The organization operated under a generic, forgettable title, something you would scroll past without even noticing, but its mission was anything but small. It provided emergency rebuilding funds for families who lost homes in disasters. From California wildfire victims to Massachusetts storm survivors. The reason nobody knew was because Tom insisted the help stay anonymous. He wanted people to rebuild with dignity, not feel indebted to a TV personality. 3 families carried the truth for years because they had met him face to face. Tom had shown up quietly at their ruined properties wearing an old baseball cap and work gloves, telling them he was just a volunteer sent by the foundation. They only learned the truth later when paperwork revealed the founder's signature. All 3 promised to keep it silent. Tom never wanted praise. He wanted roofs over people's heads, but the secret began leaking in early. 2025, when a former accountant for a regional relief organization recognized patterns in funding records. The numbers weren't small. Over the years, the hidden foundation had given away millions, not from donations, but from Tom's personal earnings, royalties, and appearances. Reporters dug into the financial trail and connected it back to him. When the story finally broke, fans couldn't believe it. While people saw him as a humble craftsman on TV, sanding boards and fixing old houses, he had quietly been rebuilding lives across the country. When asked why he hid it, Tom said something simple. A house is more than wood. It's where life happens. If you can give someone that back, you don't need your name on it. Suddenly, all the quiet moments in his career made sense. The long nights, the extra jobs, the unexpected disappearances from the spotlight. He had been fueling something bigger than television. The revelation didn't change how he worked. The day after the news hit, he still walked into a job site, carrying the same old tool belt he'd worn for decades. Crew members noticed he was tired, maybe more than usual. But he still inspected every joint, checked every brace, and reminded apprentices to measure twice. Financial experts began calling his foundation one of the most impactful private relief efforts nobody had heard of. Builders who grew up watching him on TV said it finally explained the strange rumors over the years stories about Tom quietly mailing checks to families after storms, sending materials across states, even driving overnight to help strangers fix broken roofs in quiet corners of Massachusetts. Small towns began sharing stories they'd been keeping. A man in Worcester said Tom paid off his rebuilding loan after a fire destroyed his home. A retired couple in Amherst revealed that a mysterious donor replaced their failing furnace during a brutal winter. A single mother in Chico said someone had anonymously repaired her home after a hurricane. Every story pointed to the same man who never sought credit. And when journalists pressed him again, Tom sighed and said he wasn't looking to be a hero. He said he simply believed that if someone had the ability to help, they should. To him, it was just another kind of carpentry, rebuilding lives instead of walls. Even after the truth became public, Tom refused to turn the foundation into a brand. He kept it small, personal, and quiet, run by just a handful of trusted people. He said the work was never about publicity. It was about giving people a place to return to at the end of the day. As the year went on, fans continued watching him on television, but with different eyes. They realized the gentle man with the careful hands wasn't just fixing old houses. He was building something bigger, something that would outlive every plank he ever touched. And while he walked into the later years of his life, still steady, still humble, people finally understood the truth. This wasn't just the carpenter they grew up watching. This was a man who spent decades quietly holding up strangers when their world collapsed, and he had done it all without anyone knowing his name was behind it. But the truth was, Derek Beery had been hiding something far bigger than a broken project car or a missed upload. Behind the camera, behind the jokes, behind the stubborn determination to get up done, he was fighting a battle no one saw. As the channel grew, so did the pressure. Every video had to be bigger, wilder, riskier. Fans wanted more rescues, more revivals, more impossible saves even when Derek's body was giving out and his mind was exhausted. People saw the smiles. They didn't see the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the back pain from years of crawling under junkyard frames, the stress of carrying a business on his shoulders while trying to be a husband, a father, and a one-man automotive army. And then something snapped. In 2023, Derek quietly disappeared from YouTube for weeks. No explanation. No community post. Nothing. Rumors exploded. Was he sick? Injured? Quitting? But only his closest friends knew the truth. Derek had reached a point where even the simplest task felt impossible. He wasn't burnt out. He was broken. He tried to film, but every time he picked up the camera, his hands shook. He tried to fix cars, but his focus was gone. He tried to smile, but it wasn't real. For the first time in his life, Derek questioned everything. Is this worth losing myself? Is this worth sacrificing my health, my peace, my family? And then came the moment that changed everything. One evening, while working on a car alone in the shop, he collapsed. Not from an accident, not from an injury, from sheer exhaustion. That's when his family stepped in. They told him the words he had been too stubborn to accept. You've given everything to your fans. Now, you need to give something to yourself. And that's when Derek made the hardest decision of his career. He stepped back. Not because he wanted to, because he had to. But what happened next shocked everyone when Derek finally returned. Fans expected the same wild rescues, the same death-defying road trips, the same stubborn, we're gonna make it attitude. But something was different. His smile was softer. His voice was tired. And for the first time ever, he looked human. He tried to hide it, tried to push through, tried to pretend nothing had changed. But in every video, you could see it, the weight, the pressure, the pain. And then came the turning point. During a routine revival, Derek stopped mid-sentence on camera. He looked at the car, then at the ground, then at the camera again, his eyes filled with a sadness his audience had never seen before. "Not as tough as I used to be," he whispered. "It wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. It was a rare glimpse into the truth." He had been hiding for months. Thousands of fans flooded the comments, begging him to slow down. Some said they had seen the signs. Others admitted they had pushed him too hard without realizing it. But what no one knew was that behind the scenes, Derek had already made a life-changing decision. He was preparing to scale back the entire channel, fewer videos, fewer stressful rescues, fewer risky revivals, not because he wanted less adventure, but because he wanted more time with his family, more time for his health, more time to simply breathe. But the real shock came when Derek privately revealed something heartbreaking to a close friend. "I thought I had to keep pushing, even if it killed me." That single sentence changed everything. Derek's quiet confession spread among his closest circle like a shockwave. Most people only saw the man on camera, the calm, unshakable, grease-covered legend who could resurrect a rusted Hulk with a wrench, a prayer, and a gallon of hope. But those closest to him knew the truth. Derek had been running on fumes for years. Every rescue, every road trip, every impossible revival had taken a piece of him that he never got back. And finally, the bill had come due. For the first time since launching Vice Grip Garage, Derek started questioning not just the channel, but his own identity. Who was he without the chaos? Without the pressure? Without the constant race against time, rust, and reality? He sat alone in his shop late at night, surrounded by half-finished projects. The Charger he had promised to finish. The truck he rescued from a pasture in Minnesota. The old Chevelle, he said, would just take a weekend 3 years ago. They sat around him like ghosts, reminders of everything he had given and everything he had lost. Derek picked up a wrench, but it felt heavier than it used to. The smell of gear oil, once his comfort, now reminded him of stress. Even the camera on the tripod looked like a judge silently asking, "Well, what's your next big stunt?" But he didn't have the answer. One night, after everyone had gone to sleep, he walked out to the porch of the Tennessee farm he had worked so hard to build. The air was thick and warm. Crickets echoed through the fields. He stood there silently, staring out at the dark horizon, and for the first time in years, he felt lost. The channel had become a giant, and giants demand to be fed. Every rescue needed to be crazier. Every build needed to be bigger. Every video needed to outperform. It's the last. Because the moment you slow down, people move on. Derek knew that. Truth too well? He saw creators burn out. He saw creators lose everything. He saw creators destroy their health trying to keep up. He just never thought he'd become one of them. But life doesn't knock politely sometimes. It kicks the door down in early 2023. After months of silence, Derek finally gathered the courage to run analytics on his channel. The numbers were staggering. Over 3 million subscribers, hundreds of millions of views, brand deals, sponsorships, a digital empire built by his bare hands. But the numbers that mattered most weren't on YouTube. They were on his medical chart. His stress levels were dangerously high. His sleep cycle was fractured. His back issues had worsened to the point that every revival video required painkillers just to get through the day. He had developed migraines, so intense that some days he couldn't stand under the shop. Lights out, his doctor told him bluntly, "If you don't slow down, you'll be forced to." Those words haunted him, but even then, Derek didn't stop. He did what he always did. He pushed through. He picked up the camera, wiped his face, and said his famous line, "Let's see if we can get this OL girl back on the road." Fans loved it, but Derek's wife saw his hands shaking. His kids saw him wincing when he bent down. His friends saw the toll building behind his smile. One day, during a particularly stressful shoot, Derek felt a sharp, burning pain shoot across his spine. He dropped his tools, gasped for air, and fell to one knee. The crew rushed toward him, but Derek, stubborn as ever, waved them off and forced himself to stand. He wanted to believe it was just fatigue. It was in later that night. He collapsed again, this time in his own living room in front of his family. His wife ran to hold him. His kids cried, and for the first time in his life, Derek didn't try to be strong. He let himself be vulnerable. He let himself admit that he needed help. Doctors confirmed what he'd been ignoring: stress-induced exhaustion, severe muscle strain, and dangerously high blood pressure. The man who could resurrect dead cars was destroying his own engine. Something had to change. And so, after weeks of deep reflection, Derek made a decision that shocked even him. He would let go, not quit, not disappear, but step back and rebuild his life before rebuilding. Another car, he announced: fewer uploads, shorter rescues, less risky revivals, more time for his health, his family, and his sanity. But the internet is unpredictable. When he slowed down, rumors exploded. Is Derek quitting YouTube? Is Vice Grip Garage over? Did something bad happen on the farm? Is Derek hiding an injury? Some fans were supportive, others were angry, demanding content without understanding the cost. A loud minority accused him of changing, getting soft, or forgetting his roots. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know that Derek had come closer to shutting down VGG entirely than anyone realized. He admitted privately to a friend, "I was a week away from deleting everything." That one sentence showed how deep his struggle had become. But then something incredible happened. A video he posted raw, honest, unscripted, changed the entire narrative in it. Derek admitted that he wasn't okay. He talked about pressure, burnout, health issues, and the unrealistic expectations that come with being a one-man show. He expected backlash. Instead, he received the greatest outpouring of support in the channel's history. Thousands of fans wrote, "We don't care about the cars. We care about you."